Okay. Hello, everyone. Sorry about the little technical troubles there. I hope we solved them and that the next speaker can go ahead, or the previous ones can go ahead after me. So, thank you for being here today. Does this work? Yeah. My name is Felicia Kemmner. I'm a PhD student at the University of Lausanne in Switzerland, and I'm working on how open technology in general, and specifically how open technology and the OCP can affect an industry, disaggregate an industry, and help advance supply chain management. Just a small preface, I have a business background and just a business background. I did international business, then focused on supply chain management. And now I guess it's a little bit of strategy too. But my point is you have to bear with me on the technical details probably. Where do I have to point? Can you go to the next slide? Thanks. So, okay, it's a little bit shot through with the layout. Let's see. There's not a lot out there in terms of research on open hardware. This is from one of the articles that does exist. It was written by one of my supervisors, Hervé Legendre, together with OCP's own Steve Helvey. And my point is to look at how open technology can affect an industry. So I look at how an industry is organized in general. And it's useful to then ask who is actually doing what. And there are two specific questions of consequence, and that is who is creating the value and then who is capturing the value. So if you look at the upper part of the graph, you have an integrator who buys in things within a supply chain on the market. So the technology creation is still a little bit distributed, but then he puts it all together. So that's where the value creation is happening. And he then sells this on the market, so he's also capturing the value at the same time. And if you think that there might only be a couple of big companies out there, you can imagine that the integrator might actually have quite a lot of market power. Now, if you look at the lower part of the graph, we have open source technology, which then leads to having an open source ecosystem. So the technology creation is happening in collaboration. The value creation is happening in the same way. And then that also means that the individual members of the ecosystem are more visible when it gets to the market and to the clients. So this is why we then talk about a disaggregation of the industry. So there are some benefits to the OCP and open source technology, which I'm sure you know, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So the main things I found out are, so far, I'm still at the beginning of my research, is that collaborative innovation is a big part. So you have companies who come together, who talk to each other. Ideally, they even collaborate together so that innovation can happen on a much faster timescale. But even just having this modular framework that the community provides means it's possible that a company can just work on a module in their expertise and put that on the market or share that with the community without having to build the rest of the product to actually be able to sell it on a normal market, which again also speeds up the timeline of innovation. Now, this modularity, this fast innovation leads to cost reductions in general, for example, in energy efficiency or in maintenance cost. Then the next point is higher flexibility. So there are actually two parts to this. In a way, you have a broader supply base, so you have a bit more flexibility in picking the people that you want to work with. And ideally, this also pushes down the prices a little bit, so again, you have a bit of a cost reduction here. And then the second part of the flexibility is that you actually can configure the product in the exact way that you want it. It's not just a couple of generalist solutions out there, but you can kind of pick and mix actually the product that suits your needs. So there's a high flexibility in terms of configuration. And then the last point is industry standard. And I don't even mean to say that the OCP is imposing an industry standard. I'm more willing to say that it actually reduces the likelihood of an industry standard war. So a standard war means that there are competing companies with a solution to the same problem, but that the industry kind of has to focus on one solution and convene on one solution, otherwise there's a problem of incompatibility. But given this modular framework and also the communication that's happening in general, means that the likelihood of this actually happening and this ending in incompatibility is greatly reduced. So I've put down some effects on sustainability because I'm looking at what the OCP can do kind of through the lens of what's happening in terms of sustainability in the industry. And these are maybe like achievements from the beginning or like very generalist of OCP. So we have the reduction of input materials, we have a second life for servers, in general energy efficiency and technical innovations. And I know this is not a lot, but I'm sure that you know a lot as well. So are there any takers? You know, I think the room is quite small, so if you just call it out. Any examples? Yeah. I guess that would be kind of in the region of technical innovations, yeah? Anyone else?
I would say extended use, as Eric Rieder was speaking about before.
Yeah. Something else? So there's lots out there. This is by all no means not an exhaustive list, and I plan to extend on this further in my research, of course. But to kind of give you an idea of what I'm doing with the project is, as a researcher, I kind of look at a specific case, at a specific context, and then I kind of have to take a step back and make that palatable to a wider audience who have no idea about servers and the data center industry. So what I've done so far with kind of the preliminary findings from me for this industry is here an example, so you can kind of see where my overall research is going. So overall, the OCP as a community is increasing the rate of innovation, as I've just explained. There's also lots of different people and companies coming together who might not necessarily usually talk to each other. So we have a pooling of expertise here. And then also there are new ideas, there are new members, there are new projects. So it's also in development, the whole thing. And then because people like you come here and talk about what you're doing, what you think might be a good direction to proceed in, we also have a mainstreaming of the best practices. So what I'm trying to do is to look at the different projects, how they have an impact on the industry, and then I need to find the commonalities between them, put them in a theoretical framework so that it can be used to inform other industries in the end. And this is where I need your help. So please get involved in my research. I need to do about 20 to 30 interviews in the next couple months. And I want to know what you're actually working on. What OCP project are you working on? How is it impacting the industry? Maybe in terms of industry structure, maybe in terms of sustainability, maybe you know something I don't know yet. I'm happy to hear all of it. And just in general, how is the OCP community and open technology making a difference? So please do me the favor and scan the QR code. It's a very tiny survey where I just ask you to name your project and what impact it has, because I'm happy to have some kind of ideas of where I should look. Sometimes as like someone who doesn't understand the technical side of things, it's a bit difficult to start where to look, where's the point that I actually have to address. That's useful and valuable for my research. Also, if you're interested in my research and the outcome of it, no, I can't promise any time frame, but you can also indicate that with your email address so I can let you know what my findings are. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, very interesting. Could you please go back a few slides to the open source tech? Yeah.
This one?
That one.
Okay.
How do you see? I assume you're doing your PhD in business or something.
Yes.
So how do you see or regard this versus competition? I mean, it's kind of OCP, and you think, well, how can actually say Meta in this case? How can they start this, with their competitors, Google and Microsoft and what have you?
Well, that's kind of the tricky thing, but also the special thing about OCP, right? Because actually the big companies are here together, which is why I think this community in general can be an example for other communities where this is not happening, because the main driving forces, the kind of hyperscalers in the other industries, they would never collaborate. And of course, I don't know how much they actually collaborate, but the thing is that they're in the same room, listening to each other and talking to each other is kind of what's affecting this. So this is in general for the whole industry, but obviously it has to be a bit more precise or like fine-tuned for specific actors. But I'm just looking at the overall industry organization. Does that answer your question?
It does. I agree. OCP is great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I may say, if you can just come back on the previous slide, because it might.
This one?
Yeah, on this slide, which is quite important to me because this is basically the starting point. And you mentioned something about the integrators bringing solutions together. You should perhaps dig into the real return that the integrator do. It's not a lot of money because the integration is based on a lot of distribution model with people.
Yes.
And in fact, the margins are very small. So where the people are making money is the vendors. And so if you look at the overall solution, there are a lot of different vendors with different equipment.
Yeah, of course.
And they've made the money. And if you look at the history of that, in general, they've made a way that they could have an advance of 18 months in order to generate an innovation that could be then sold massively and take enough advance. So you can analyze Cisco, for example, if you just look at Cisco, they moved from the router business to the server business.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do that, they've had an advantage with virtualization that they got with Intel. And I think if you dig into this, you will really understand that what is key is the innovation.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't actually part of my research. This is already published by one of my supervisors, so I kind of tweaked it a little bit, but it's more a general model. So I'm just saying, coming from kind of the industry organization, there is a bottleneck in the industry in a way if someone is creating the value, but someone else is capturing the value. And that's kind of the thing, whoever is actually selling it in the end, they're the face to the end customer. So they might, I mean, yes, there are some good branding in terms of Intel, you always have that little sticker, right? So you're aware of what's inside your products. But as a general thing, that might not be the case, and this is a very generalist finding. But thank you for the input, I'll take that in mind.
If you look at the history, then you will understand why the Meta, the Microsoft, and everybody and the AWS, they came together because they suddenly say, we need to do it ourselves.
Yes.
And this is where the trigger of OCP comes in, because then it makes sense to work together.
Absolutely.
Okay.
If that's it, I'll just show you my QR code one more time in case you haven't gotten it yet. And then I think maybe I've gotten back some couple minutes that we've lost earlier. Thank you very much.